family and fellow soldiers. I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth. That's the only way that Symone has a chance of getting some sort of promotion. If Joe Biden unceremoniously quits the presidency and Kamala Harris inevitably finds herself sworn in. But even then, Kamala Harris will probably find some way to get Symone out of the way and somebody else will get put there. And that's the way it works. There's no honor among these thieves. And yet, as our CNN reporterette said, Kamala Harris is planning to bring in two additional members. But is it two additional members or is it two replacement members? But if Kamala Harris is going to be making some addition or changes or otherwise doing something with her communication staff, well, the question becomes, is Ashley Etienne going to be getting her walking papers? How about Symone Sanders, the chief spokesperson and senior advisor for Kamala Harris? Since at least November of last year, I've been telling you that Kamala Harris would give Symone Sanders the boot as soon as she was sworn in as president. Hell, Symone didn't even last that long. Just in time for the holidays. But Symone Sanders wasn't the only one who got a pink slip in her Christmas stocking. Over here in the black media, we've been pointing out that Kamala Harris's staff, these bootlicks like Symone, Mamie Sanders, and Karine Stud-Pierre, and Ashley Etienne, these clowns were going to wind up getting themselves unceremoniously booted out of office, or rather out of a job, because that's all they had. They didn't really have an office. Symone Sanders was in the basement right alongside Karine Pierre, both of them stewing. Ashley Etienne down there commiserating with them. These three gals, mad as hell, I guess they thought to themselves that they were going to be White House press secretary. Instead, they went to a white woman who couldn't have seen this one coming. But we've been saying this for over a year now. Before Joe Biden even took the oath of office, just hours after he won the election, you had the black media telling you these three who thought that they were going to be in the money, they were going to be out on their behinds. And speaking of unceremoniously booted out, it was so unceremonious that it was 2 weeks ago, exactly 2 weeks ago on the 18th, that Ashley Etienne quietly announced, or rather confirmed, that she was going to be leaving the White House. She was Kamala Harris's communications director. Ashley Etienne, who's of Haitian descent, just like Karine Stud-Pierre, she very quietly announced, yep, I'm leaving. And what was the reason? Well, you know what the reason is. It's the go-to excuse that they all use to pursue other opportunities. As CNN put it, Etienne's exit has been a long time coming. Remember that phrase, you will be seeing it very soon. Now, it's amazing to me because how can she claim that she's going to go pursue other opportunities? She just got to Washington 11 months ago. She hasn't done anything. So what's she leaving for? The report of Etienne's firing, departure, reads with all the sarcasm of a Monty Python skit. At the top it says, Ashley is a valued member of the vice president's team who has worked tirelessly to advance the goals, blah, 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 blah. And then a couple paragraphs later it says, one source said Etienne was not a good fit for Harris's office and did not play a sufficiently active role in crafting a communication strategy for Harris's topsy-turvy first year in office. Both sources said there are no immediate plans to replace Etienne as Harris's communications director. So she was a valued member of the vice president's team. So valued that they got rid of her after less than a year, and they have no plans to replace her because apparently she's irreplaceable. That's how valued she was to Kamala Harris. Now, it's not exactly as if we've been keeping vigil, watching passionately and intently to see when these guys were going to implode. No need to, because our power of black empowerment is not based on when these bootlicks fall, but it is good to keep these things chronicled. And don't think for a minute that Ashley Etienne left of her own accord. She did not. Hell, they wanted her out. And I told you that it wouldn't be long before Symone Sanders was gone, and that before it's all over, Karine Stud-Pierre, she's going to. These three, they were never going to be in there long term. They were thinking to themselves that they were more important than they really were. Their reasons for going to Washington were that there were going to be bootlicks climbing the ladder, and that's the reason why Symone Sanders told all those lies, and that's the reason why she was football tackling people. This is what the bootlicks have to do to get a job that they don't get to keep. The decision to get rid of them was made months ago. That's the reason why Ashley Etienne went first, because she was largely anonymous. Unlike Symone Sanders, Etienne was a nobody. You never really saw her on TV. She wasn't a frequent guest on panels for CNN or MSNBC, nor was she on the campaign trail as a spokesperson for Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. She wasn't high profile. So when the decision was made that these black women working in Kamala Harris's milieu are going to be shown the door, well, you don't want it to seem like a bloodbath necessarily. Otherwise, people would say, "Oh, look, Kamala Harris's office is falling apart like we knew it would, and everything's collapsing. Oh, what kind of chief executive is she going to make if Biden decides to? If Biden, for whatever reason, can't continue as president, oh my God, this is who's going to be in the Oval Office. This is who the nuclear codes are going to be given to." So Kamala Harris was determined that she's not going to manufacture those kind of disastrous headlines for herself. For her to have a simultaneous, all-at-once, complete turnover in staff, oh no, that she doesn't want anyone having headlines saying that. So how do you handle this? Well, what you do is you do it quietly and you space it out. We'll go ahead and kick Ashley Etienne out this week. Then 2 weeks from now, we'll give Symone Sanders her 2-week notice that she's out. And notice that it's by the end of the year. Ashley Etienne, she announced last month that she would be leaving the White House by the end of the year. And now, today, Symone Sanders confirms she's going to be leaving by the end of the year. And don't be surprised if Karine Pierre winds up quietly confirming her own departure from the White House over the new year. Don't be surprised. Now we know why it is that Kamala Harris brought in those 2 additional members of her communication staff. Remember CNN talking about that? Yeah, she brought in 2 white communications advisors, both of whom work in crisis management, which is just perfect for her doggone team. Her office needs some crisis management. And as soon as that was announced, Symone and Ashley and Karine's days were numbered at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So this mess has unfolded exactly as the black media told you that it would. Hell, Ashley Etienne's departure was so doggone quiet it largely went totally unnoticed. So while the roly-polies and the Mark Lamont shills and the Joy Reids and the rest of the clowns in the bootleg media will be telling you, "Ooh, an earthquake going on. Who could have seen this coming?" We've been telling you the entire time. So for the folks who apparently were thinking, if I could just get an interview with Symone Sanders, man, she was going to be gone from the White House faster than the drive-through at McDonald's. Before people could even ask, well, what music is Biden going to play at the presidential inaugural ball? In the black media, we were saying for Symone Sanders, they might as well play the goodbye song, because that's what it's going to be. As I've said before, don't be surprised, though, when we inevitably find out that it was probably Symone who was the source talking to the white media about all the infighting and dysfunction in Kamala's office. So basically, Kamala's office was essentially the Washington version of Mean Girls. This is a level of maturity for all of you ski-wees out there, for all of you Biden bots and you Kamala butt kissers out there. This is your girl. This is how she runs things. This is the kind of office that she runs. This is something that we've seen from her before, but ain't nothing new about this. Chaos and dysfunction follows Kamala wherever she goes. Like when she was San Francisco DA. One of the city's crime lab technicians was snorting the cocaine that the police had confiscated. Over 1,000 cases wound up having to be dismissed as a result. Following that, it came to light that over 80 San Francisco police officers and other city officials had extensive criminal records and misconduct, which then DA Kamala Harris's office consistently refused to turn over to defense attorneys for trial. Or another scandal from her days as San Francisco DA, the city was made to repay the Department of Justice $5.4 million that San Francisco had gotten earmarked for the prosecution of border-related crimes, even though San Francisco is more than 500 miles from the Mexican border. Yet somehow Kamala Harris's office had gotten and spent more than $5 million of that federal money, which was more than any other jurisdiction in the nation. So what you're seeing going on the last couple of months in Kamala Harris's VP's office, that ain't new. It's standard operating procedure for her. The only difference is that now it's national news because of the office that she currently holds. So when you see people floating stories, even if it's false news, Fox News, talking about Kamala Harris might be replaced by Buttigieg or whomever, that's not exactly idle talk. People are looking and going, well, hell, it's not like she's going to get any smarter or any better or any more organized. Whatever sort of four-dimensional chess that they thought that they were playing by putting her on the ticket, well, clearly they checkmated themselves. And you know who else played themselves? Symone Sanders. Don't let anyone tell you that her departure was some sort of pleasant, friendly affair. It wasn't. CNN quoted some anonymous source as saying that Harris has known for some time about Sanders' upcoming departure. That's political jargon for we put her on notice back in September that she better hit the bricks. So just like Etienne, Symone Sanders' exit wasn't sudden and unexpected to anyone in the White House. This has been a long time coming. And it sure wasn't a surprise to the black media. This is how it always goes. You can either leave on your own and call it a resignation, or you can wait for us to announce that we're kicking you out. Everyone goes to pursue other opportunities elsewhere. Now, ever since the white media finally picked up on this story today, you've had a number of goofballs from the loser shea butter contingent of black Twitter who decided they didn't like some of the posts that I put up. She's just like them. Symone Sanders is loud, obnoxious, ready to tell any low-down lie for a white politician, and not to mention she needs to lose some weight. So she is the perfect stand-in, the perfect substitute, the perfect proxy, if you will, for the shea butter critters, Twitter crowd. And by the way, for the idiots who call themselves bombing into my Twitter feed, whining and complaining that we don't do fat shaming or body shaming here, you shouldn't be doing that. You know, it's amazing. I've been getting on roly-poly about his weight for the longest time, for damn years, over a decade now. Haven't been hearing any of these people. These people didn't say anything. Oh yeah, I go ahead and I make a couple of chubby jokes and jokes at the expense of roly-poly about his weight. These people ain't got nothing to say. But all of a sudden you say it about Symone Sanders and they're in their feelings. Yeah, we got a lot of folks around here who think to themselves that they're little stealth agents for the bootlicks or whoever. But the thing is, I know how to flush you scumbags out. Whenever Rowley talks about the handful of black women who would be up in arms if Kamala was forced to step down as vice president, this loud, tiny handful of malcontents is who he's talking about. The most ignorant, most stupid, least respected part of black society. These are the same handful of morons who are always cheerleading for the Democrats and telling us that we don't need to be demanding anything. We haven't seen or heard from these clowns for a year now. But all of a sudden, they're starting to poke their heads back up again. You know what that means? Next year's elections are about to kick into gear, and these bootlicking chumps are crawling out of their holes. And they're going to start doing the whole, we can't be asked for no, don't be causing no trouble now. Had one idiot saying, Symone Sanders is going to go work for Stacey Abrams' campaign. So the hell what? Everyone who Symone Sanders goes to work for are people who tell us to our faces they ain't going to do a damn thing for us. Or in the case of Biden, somebody who's done things against us, and Symone Sanders is out there carrying the soap for him and telling lies and saying it wasn't his fault. And you got idiots who come around me trying to stick up for that. Ooh, Stacey Abrams, another politician who ain't promised us a damn thing. She's going to be running for governor in Georgia again. Great, yet another election that Gabby Sidibe's stunt double can't win. Now, before I go any farther, I think there's something that needs to be said. Your eyeballs, black people, particularly intelligent black society, the folks who are going to get things done, the ones who the white supremacists are terrified are going to get on code and then get on the march, you are the ones who everybody's fighting to get the eyeballs and the mind share of. You're what this is all about. The reason that I make it such a point to remind you that all of this was foreseen by the black media is that because as black people, we've been conditioned, deliberately and intentionally conditioned, not to trust each other. Now, during slavery, this was the case because we didn't have the ability to protect one another from white violence. And after hundreds of years of this relentless barbarity and brutality that we were not able to stop the white supremacists from inflicting on us and on each other, it eventually undermined and destroyed our loyalty system. But this mutual distrust has persisted all the way to the present. It's the reason why we make excuses for not buying black. Either the black person is charging too much, and if that excuse fails, then we claim the goods or services from non-black people are higher quality. One or the other. And the same goes for the information we consume. We place a higher premium on the bad information and the lying analyses given to us by the white media. And they've cultivated a gang of black bootlicks who vouch for the white media's lies and distortions, and they tell us we can trust the white media because, well, this bootlick who's hoping to get their own TV show said so. This is not about patting ourselves on the back or taking a victory lap. I fully realize this might be misinterpreted that way. What I want is for you all to know that the quality of information and analyses that you get from the black media is better than what you're going to get from the white media, and certainly better than anything you'll get from their sock puppet front flunkies like The Rot, BNC, or Roly Poly's Broom Closet. I remind you of our predictions and how they consistently come to pass because it's way past time that black people had a media that put its brain power and powers of persuasion to work for us. I don't take your viewership or your support for granted. I never have. It's important to me that you be able to have confidence in what it is that you hear people like myself saying. When it comes to the events of the day and where the trends are heading, I want you to be able to rest assured that the information and analyses that you get from the new voices of black media are every bit as good, in fact, better than what you're going to be getting from the white media. We got to be a step ahead. We're not going to beat white supremacy simply by keeping pace with them. They've already got too far a head start. We got to outpace the bastards. We got to leapfrog them. That's why it was so important to me that I have those little morning briefs that I do, the moment of truth. It was important to me that it be posted first thing in the morning. Not just merely to set the tone for the day, but it's to get black folks into the daily habit of you don't start your day listening to Tom Joyner or listening to the Breakfast Clubs. You don't need gibberish, lies, distortions, and deflections given to you by Negroes who work for white studios and white station managers who are just trying to get you to stay on the treadmill. The bootlicks have been showing professional courtesy to one another, but the information and analyses that I've given you, we've been telling you for the longest time that all of this was going to happen. We were telling you what a freaking disaster Kamala was from the very beginning. So while you got the rest of these clowns who are going to be pretending to show phony sympathy, oh, you shouldn't be criticizing Kamala Harris, what will those black female voters think? None of them are going to be talking about all the black women who Kamala Harris's policies locked up. I think it was Bill Moyers who said that the news is the information you need in order to keep your freedom. Well, under white supremacy, what they mean by freedom is power. So the way that Moyers should have put it is the news is the information you need to know in order to keep your power. You need someone, in fact, you need a group of people who make sure that the news that they bring to you and the analyses they provide is geared toward your power. Everybody else has had that. You haven't until now. You make sure that whoever it is that you're getting your news and views from is able to tell you what's going to happen long before it does, and then you hold them to account on whether or not they got it right, especially at a time like this. People telling you to get all happy about Kamala Harris being vice president, and look, she's got some black women working for her. Hell, even if you were on the Kamala hype train, how the hell do you explain this? Well, as we've seen from the ski-wee contingent on Twitter today, they're not even attempting to explain it. They're not even attempting to justify it. They're instead wanting to argue that, well, they're going to land on their feet. And if this is how these clowns react to two high-profile black women being kicked out of the vice president's communications office, do you really believe that if the Democrats tell them suck it up and get over it, that they would be all that outraged about Kamala Harris getting her pink slip too? So no, none of what we're seeing the last couple of weeks, especially not today, strikes us as any sort of surprise. We've been calling for over a year. They're doing it slowly so it doesn't look like a bloodbath. Because to have a huge number of departures, especially from Kamala's office, that would be noticed. Everybody would talk about it. They can't afford for this to look like a sudden collapse. It has to look more like a controlled demolition. And Symone's not going to give them any problems. Like Donna Brazile before her, Symone needs the Democratic Party to float her next job. Sucking up to the DNC is the only skill she has and the only job she's qualified for. She doesn't advise anyone. She just regurgitates whatever her white political patron tells her to say so that her bosses have more time to play golf and she stands in front of the camera spouting the party line. If Symone actually knew anything, not only would Kamala have listened to her, perhaps, but Symone wouldn't have been in this dysfunctional White House to begin with. Anyway, as Symone sees it, she's got her equity out of the game, more or less. She can now honestly, and I put honestly in quotes, say that she served in the White House. And she'll try to big herself up and try to make it sound like she was more important than she really was. She'll try to make it sound like she was involved in every single major policy decision and a lot of the minor ones. And she'll take credit for what few pieces of legislation Biden managed to eke through Congress. By the time she's done, she'll make it sound like she had the nuclear codes. Expect her to scribble out her next book within a year or so, and just like Donna Brazile, she'll start popping up on TV again. Hell, I'm half expecting her to wash up on the putrid shores of bootlick media. Don't be surprised if you see Symone Sanders making a couple of guest appearances on Roly Poly's Broom Closet broadcast, or on Mark Lamont Schill's Crap-O-Rama that he's doing. Don't be surprised at all. These bootlicks con themselves. They have to. They lie to themselves and convince themselves that these white supremacists like them and are loyal to them and are grateful for all their shameless bootlicking. Valuable advice. The white supremacists don't have gratitude to anyone or anything, not even each other. So you can tell this is just more of the endless string of evidence that the black media is way ahead of the curve. And as long as you stick with us, you'll know what happens years before it actually does. Because you dang sure didn't see Roly Poly saying, Symone, she's gonna be she'll be gone within a year. She's going to happen pretty fast. You didn't see Joy Reid saying, you didn't see Mark Lamont Schiller saying, you haven't seen any of them saying it. So are they being honest with you about the standing of black people, especially the standing of black women in this administration? If they're sitting here dancing around the issue, because while the rest of them are pretending like, oh, we don't know what the hell's going to be going on. No, they're just trying to make sure they don't make anyone look bad. Well, except for black people, they have no fear of making black people look bad. That's the game that the bootlicks play. And this thing has gone exactly the way that we told you it would for the exact reasons that we told you that it would. First, Ashley Etienne, then Symone Sanders. How long until Kamala gets the boot? Because this isn't looking like a rescue operation at all. It's looking more like a transition. And the Democrats are trying to prepare the minds of the public for something that hasn't happened in 45 years, for either the president or vice president to be gone before the end of their term. This would be shocking indeed, but the Dems know that Kamala Harris can't win a presidential election. You know, it was almost exactly 2 years ago, December 3rd, 2019, that Kamala Harris threw in the towel on her pathetic presidential campaign. Is history about to repeat itself again? That's starting to look much more likely. And by the way, the same Roly Poly and others who were talking about black women ain't gonna like it if you place her, they'll be the same ones who, as soon as she gets kicked out, they'll be saying, well, I mean, they're too dangerous, and then Republicans too dangerous. They're all a bunch of wannabe Trumps, and we got to get behind the Dems no matter what we think. We got to get behind. These are the same people who told black people, don't worry about your survival. You don't worry about any tangibles that you need. You worry about what they need. What these white Democrats need, that's what's important. What you're talking about, that's side stuff. Isn't it what they always say about all of our demands? Mm-hmm. Our demands are always side issues, not the main issue, not that important. We need to wait. So the same ones who told black folks as a group that we need to not worry about the Democrats offending us, they'll be the same ones who are telling black women, well, it's unfortunate, but we got to move on, got to move on. The Democrats have 3 years to bring in Vice Presidential nominee Warren or Vice Presidential nominee Buttigieg or whomever it is they want to replace the senile, doddering fossil currently occupying the Oval Office. And if and when Kamala Harris does get the boot, I'm sure the white media will have plenty of White House sources who will be able to say her departure was expected for a long time, too. Good day, and be one.